Ambassador Zethkar stared at the data screen in his office. The numbers made no sense. He read them again, slowly this time. His scaled fingers tapped against the metal desk as he tried to understand what he was seeing. 37 departure requests from human colonies in the past month. Before that, 22 in the previous month. The month before that, 18. The pattern went back 6 months, and it was getting worse. Zethkar had worked for the Galactic Council for over 40 years. He had seen many species come and go from Council space. Some left because of wars, others left because they could not adapt to galactic society. But this was different. The humans were not running away. They were leaving quietly, carefully, like they had planned it all along. He pulled up the details of each departure request. The language was always polite and formal. Cultural differences make continued cooperation difficult. We seek new opportunities for growth and development. Thank you for your understanding during this transition period. But Zethkar knew better. He had worked with humans for decades. They did not speak like this when they were happy. This was the way humans talked when they were angry but trying to be polite about it. The ambassador stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the great towers of Nexus Prime stretching into the sky. Ships from dozens of different species came and went from the massive spaceports. The Galactic Council had built something amazing here, a place where hundreds of different civilizations could work together in peace. So why were the humans leaving? Zethkar remembered when humanity first joined the Council. That was almost 100 years ago. Back then, the Council had been smaller, only about 50 member species. The humans were young and eager. They wanted to learn everything they could about the galaxy. Most Council members had been suspicious at first. Humans were new to space travel. Their technology was basic compared to species like the Etherians or the Kythera. But humans had something else. They were adaptable. They could solve problems in ways that surprised everyone. During the Void War, humanity had proved their worth. The Devourers had been winning. These parasitic creatures could absorb the life force of entire planets. They were spreading through Council space like a plague. The traditional Council military tactics were failing. Then the humans suggested something crazy. Instead of fighting, the Devourers, with advanced weapons, they used simple tricks. They created fake life signatures to confuse the creatures. They used their own chaotic thought patterns to disrupt the Devourers' hive mind. It worked. The war was won because humans thought differently than everyone else. After the war, humans became valuable members of the Council. They served on exploration ships because they could adapt to new environments quickly. They worked in research facilities because they could see connections that other species missed. They helped solve trade disputes because they understood how different cultures thought. But somewhere along the way, things had changed. Zethkar opened another file on his computer. This one contained reports from the past 10 years. As he read through them, a pattern became clear. Slowly, quietly, the Council had begun treating humans differently. It started with small things. Human research proposals were questioned more carefully than others. Human colonies were given more regulations to follow. Human representatives were assigned to less important committees. The Council members told themselves they were being careful. Humans were still new to galactic society. They needed guidance. They needed protection from making mistakes that could hurt everyone. But the humans saw it differently. They saw discrimination. They saw their contributions being ignored. They saw themselves being treated like children who could not be trusted to make their own decisions. Zethkar found a report from 3 years ago. A human scientist named Dr. Elena Vasquez had filed a complaint. She claimed that her research had been stolen by her supervisor, an Etherian named Veltash. The Council's investigation had concluded that there was insufficient evidence of wrongdoing, but Zethkar had worked with humans long enough to know their expressions. He remembered Dr. Vasquez's face during the hearing. She had not been surprised by the decision. She had expected it. There were dozens of similar cases: human innovations that were credited to other species, human proposals that were rejected without explanation, human representatives who were excluded from important meetings. The ambassador realized that the council had made a terrible mistake. They had taken humanity's contributions for granted. They had assumed that humans would always be grateful just to be part of galactic society. They had forgotten that respect was something that had to be earned and maintained. Now, it was too late. Zethkar opened a new file. This one contained intelligence reports from the outer rim of the galaxy. For months, human ships had been traveling to a region called the Forgotten Reach. It was an area that most council species avoided. The space there was dangerous, full of gravitational anomalies and strange energy readings. There were no known habitable planets, but the humans were going there anyway. Hundreds of ships carrying thousands of people. They were not just leaving council space. They were going somewhere specific. The ambassador felt a chill run down his spine. What if the humans had found something out there? What if they had discovered something that the council did not know about? He tried to push the thought away. The Forgotten Reach was empty space. The council's best scientists had surveyed it decades ago. There was nothing there except radiation and broken asteroids. But humans had a way of finding value in things that other species overlooked. Zethkar closed the files and leaned back in his chair. He needed to report this to the High Council immediately. They needed to understand what was happening before it was too late. But deep down, he suspected it might already be too late. The humans were not acting like a species that wanted to negotiate. They were acting like a species that had made up their mind. As he prepared his report, Zethkar thought about all the human friends he had made over the years. Good people who had worked hard to make the galaxy a better place. People who had fought and died for the Council during the war. Now they were leaving, and it was the Council's own fault. The ambassador began typing his report to the High Council. But he knew that words on a screen could not fix 40 years of growing mistrust and discrimination. The damage was done. Outside his window, another human transport ship lifted off from the spaceport. It turned toward the outer rim of the galaxy and accelerated to faster than light speed. Zethkar watched until it disappeared among the stars. 18 months earlier, Dr. Elena Vasquez had believed in the dream of galactic cooperation. She worked at the Helix Institute, one of the most important research centers in Council space. The building was beautiful, with laboratories that seemed to float in the air and equipment that could analyze matter at the quantum level. Elena specialized in something called bio-quantum interfaces. It was a new field that combined biology with quantum physics. Most species thought it was impossible. Living tissue was too chaotic, they said. Quantum effects were too delicate. The two could never work together. But Elena had a different idea. She believed that chaos was not a problem to be solved. It was a tool to be used. She had been working on this theory for 3 years. Her laboratory was filled with strange-looking devices that combined organic tissue with quantum computers. Her colleagues thought she was wasting her time. Her supervisor, Dr. Veltash, often made jokes about human intuition being a poor substitute for proper scientific method. Dr. Veltash was an Etherian, a species that looked like tall, thin humans made of silver light. Etherians were known for their logical minds and their ability to process information very quickly. They were respected throughout the galaxy as natural scientists and mathematicians. Elena had tried to respect Dr. Veltash's experience and knowledge, but she noticed that he often dismissed her ideas without really listening to them. When she suggested new approaches to problems, he would explain why they would not work. When she showed him preliminary results, he would find reasons to doubt them. The other researchers at the Institute treated her the same way. They were polite, but Elena could tell they did not take her seriously. When she spoke at meetings, they would nod and smile, then continue the discussion as if she had not said anything important. It was frustrating, but Elena kept working. She believed that results would speak louder than prejudice. Then she made the breakthrough. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Elena was running an experiment with a new type of bioquantum processor. She had grown neural tissue from human stem cells and connected it to a quantum field generator. The theory was that the chaotic patterns in biological neural networks could actually help quantum computers solve certain types of problems. For months, the experiments had failed. The biological and quantum systems interfered with each other. The results were meaningless static. But that Tuesday, something was different. Elena had been working for 16 hours straight. She was tired and not thinking as carefully as usual. She made a small mistake in the calibration. Instead of fixing it, she decided to run the experiment anyway, just to see what would happen. The results were incredible. The bioquantum processor solved a complex mathematical problem in minutes. The same problem would have taken the Institute's best computers several days, but more importantly, it solved the problem in a way that no one had expected. Instead of using brute force calculations, the system found elegant shortcuts that no artificial intelligence had ever discovered. Elena ran the test again and again. Each time, the results were the same. The biological chaos was not interfering with the quantum effects. It was enhancing them. The random patterns in the neural tissue were helping the quantum computer explore multiple solutions at the same time. She had created something that was both computer and living organism, something that could think in ways that no machine or biological brain could think alone. Elena was so excited that she could barely sleep. She spent the next 2 weeks documenting everything. She wanted to make sure her results were perfect before she presented them to the Institute. When she was ready, she scheduled a meeting with Dr. Veltash. She brought all her data, her recordings of the experiments, and a working prototype of the bioquantum processor. Dr. Veltash listened to her presentation with the same polite smile he always wore. When she finished, he asked a few technical questions. Then he told her that her work was interesting, but needed further verification before it could be published. Elena agreed. She knew that extraordinary claims required extraordinary evidence. She gave Dr. Veltash copies of all her research so that he could review it properly. That was her mistake. 2 months later, Elena saw Dr. Veltash giving a presentation to the Galactic Council's Science Committee. He was describing a revolutionary new technology that combined biological and quantum computing. He called it Etherian Adaptive Processing, and claimed that he had been working on it for several years. Elena watched in shock as her supervisor presented her work as his own discovery. He had made small changes to hide the theft, but the core concepts were identical to what she had developed. When Dr. Veltash finished his presentation, the committee gave him a standing ovation. They immediately approved funding for a major research project based on his discovery. Several member species requested permission to study the technology. Elena tried to protest. She filed a formal complaint with the Institute's ethics board. She provided documentation showing that the research was hers. She had timestamps, laboratory records, and even video recordings of her experiments. But the ethics board was made up entirely of non-human species. They listened to her complaint, then interviewed Dr. Veltash. He claimed that Elena had been working under his supervision the entire time. He said that while she had contributed to the project, the breakthrough had been his idea. The board accepted his explanation. They concluded that Elena was experiencing a misunderstanding about collaborative research hierarchies. They suggested that she should be more grateful for the opportunity to work with such a distinguished scientist. Elena realized that this was not about evidence or truth. This was about who the committee was more willing to believe: a respected Etherian scientist or a young human researcher who was probably just confused about how things worked. The decision destroyed Elena's faith in the Galactic Council's commitment to fairness, but it also opened her eyes to something she had not seen before. She began talking to other human researchers throughout the galaxy. She discovered that her experience was not unusual. Human scientists regularly had their work stolen or dismissed. Human proposals were rejected for reasons that made no sense. Human researchers were passed over for promotions and important assignments. The pattern was clear. The Council claimed to value diversity and cooperation, but in practice, they had created a system where some species were more equal than others. Elena made a decision that would change her life forever. She encrypted all of her real research data and uploaded it to a secure network that only humans could access. Then she used her administrative access to delete every trace of her work from the Institute's computers. If the Council wanted to steal human discoveries, they would have to do it without her help. She submitted her resignation the next day. In her letter, she was polite and professional. She thanked the Institute for the opportunity and said that she was pursuing new research opportunities elsewhere. But Elena was not looking for another job in Council space. She was joining something much more important, a growing network of humans who had decided that they did not need the Council's approval to pursue their dreams, a movement that was planning something that would shock the galaxy. They were going to leave, all of them, and they were going to build something better. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the transport ship New Horizon, watching the stars change from white dots to long streaks as they jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the civilized galaxy grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. In the cargo bays below, 15,000 humans were starting new lives, families with children who had never known any home except Council space. Scientists carrying decades of research in encrypted databanks. Engineers who had built some of the galaxy's most important structures. Soldiers who had fought in the Void War and earned medals for their service. All of them were leaving the only galactic civilization they had ever known. Marcus had been planning this moment for 2 years. As one of the senior commanders in the human fleet, he had helped organize what they called Operation Exodus. ITAO was the largest coordinated movement of people in human history. The operation had 3 phases. First, they identified humans who wanted to leave Council space. Second, they found a place to go. Third, they moved everyone as quietly as possible before the Council realized what was happening. The first phase had been easier than expected. When human leaders began secretly reaching out to their people, they discovered that almost everyone was ready to leave. Years of discrimination and disrespect had left the human population angry and frustrated. They just needed someone to show them a way out. The second phase had been the hardest. Where could an entire species go when they wanted to leave the galaxy's only known civilization? The answer came from an unexpected source. Human exploration teams had been studying an area called the Forgotten Reach for decades. It was a region beyond the outer rim of the galaxy, where space itself seemed to behave differently. Most Council species avoided it because their instruments could not work properly there. The gravitational fields were unstable. Energy readings made no sense. Navigation was nearly impossible. But humans had learned to adapt to the strange conditions. Their pilots developed new techniques for flying through the chaotic space. Their scientists discovered that the impossible energy readings were actually signs of something extraordinary. There were structures in the Forgotten Reach, huge constructions left behind by a civilization that had disappeared millions of years ago. The structures were so advanced that Council technology could not even detect them properly. They appeared to be some kind of hybrid between machines and living organisms. Most importantly, these ancient structures seemed to respond to human presence in ways they did not respond to other species. The third phase of the operation was happening now. Hundreds of human ships were making their way to the Forgotten Reach. They traveled in small groups to avoid attracting attention. Each ship carried families, researchers, equipment, and supplies for building new colonies. Marcus checked the navigation display. They were still 3 days away from their destination. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly and efficiently. These were people he had served with for years, people he trusted with his life. "Captain, said Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the communications officer. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Torres." Marcus nodded. Admiral Sarah Torres was the architect of Operation Exodus. She had convinced the human leadership that leaving was not just possible, but necessary. Without her vision and planning, none of this would have been happening. "Put her through to my ready room," Marcus said. A few minutes later, Marcus was looking at Admiral Torres's face on his private communication screen. She looked tired but determined. Behind her, he could see the bridge of her flagship, the Prometheus. "Marcus," she said without preamble, "we have a problem. The Council has finally noticed what we're doing." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. How much do they know? Enough to be worried. Ambassador Zethkar filed a report 3 days ago, documenting the departure patterns. "The High Council has called an emergency session. They're sending delegations to negotiate with our remaining colonies." "Are any of our people interested in negotiating?" Admiral Torres shook her head. "Not after what we've found out here." Marcus leaned forward. "What do you mean?" The Admiral's expression changed. She looked excited and almost frightened at the same time. "Marcus, you need to see this for yourself, but I can tell you this much. Everything we hoped about the Forgotten Reach was true, and it's even better than we imagined." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "The structures we found are not just buildings. They're some kind of hybrid technology that combines artificial intelligence with biological consciousness. They've been waiting here for millions of years for someone who could interface with them properly. And that someone is us? Apparently, the ancient civilization that built these structures was similar to humans in some ways. They thought chaotically, intuitively. They solved problems by trying crazy ideas instead of following logical procedures. Sound familiar?" Marcus smiled despite his worry. It did sound familiar. That was exactly how humans approached everything, much to the frustration of their former council colleagues. "The structures have been teaching us," Admiral Torres continued, "not just about technology, but about new ways of thinking and organizing society. Marcus, we're not just building colonies out here. We're building something completely different. Something that makes the Galactic Council look primitive." "What about the Council's delegations? What are they offering?" "Everything they should have offered years ago: equal representation, autonomous territories, technology sharing, even apologies." Admiral Torres's voice became bitter. "They're promising to treat us with respect now that they realize we can leave." "But it's too late." "It's too late," she confirmed. "We've moved beyond needing their approval or their technology. In 5 years, maybe less, we'll be more advanced than the entire Council combined, and we'll have done it without their help." Marcus understood. This was not just about leaving an unfair situation. This was about proving that humans could build something better on their own. "What are your orders, Admiral?" "Continue with the plan. Get your people to the Reach safely. The Council delegations can negotiate with empty colonies for all I care. By the time they realize we're not coming back, we'll be too far away and too powerful for them to do anything about it." The transmission ended, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. He looked out the small window in his ready room at the stars streaming past. Somewhere behind them, the Galactic Council was probably holding emergency meetings and making desperate plans. But it was too late for desperate plans. The humans had made their choice. They were not running away from the galaxy. They were running towards something better. Marcus returned to the bridge and looked at his crew. These people had given up everything they had ever known to follow a dream of freedom and respect. He would not let them down. "Lieutenant Kim," he said, "send a message to all ships in the convoy. Tell them we're 3 days away from our new home." As the New Horizon continued its journey toward the Forgotten Reach, Marcus thought about the Council delegations that would soon arrive at empty human colonies. He wondered what they would think when they realized that humanity was not interested in negotiating anymore. They had chosen to build something new instead. High Counselor Vexathala floated above the emergency session chamber, her ethereal form shimmering with stress patterns that her species had not displayed in centuries. Below her, representatives from 47 different civilizations argued, in a dozen different languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with the chaos. The emergency session had been called after Ambassador Zethkar's report confirmed what many had begun to suspect. Humanity was leaving. Not just a few colonies or research stations, but the entire species. It was an unprecedented event in galactic history. Order! Vexathala's voice echoed through the chamber with harmonic frequencies that commanded attention. We will address this crisis systematically. The chamber fell silent. Vexathala had led the Galactic Council for over 60 years. She had guided them through wars, economic crises, and first contact with dozens of new species. But she had never faced anything like this. Ambassador Zethkar will present his findings, she announced. The Saurian diplomat activated the main display screen. Charts and graphs filled the air above the assembly. The data was devastating. In the past 8 months, we have lost 93% of the human population in council space, Zethkar reported. Departure rates are accelerating. At current trends, the last human colonies will be empty within 6 weeks. Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. Counselor Britnax, a massive insectoid from the Hive Collective, clicked his mandibles nervously. Where are they going? Our sensor networks show no signs of invasion or external threat. They are traveling to the Forgotten Reach, Zethkar replied. A region we have classified as uninhabitable and strategically worthless. Counselor Kilthara, whose aquatic species had worked closely with human engineers, raised a fin. Why would they choose such a dangerous region? What do they know that we do not? Before Zethkar could answer, another delegate spoke up. This was Counselor Nex Vara from the Kithara Collective, a race of artificial intelligences that had achieved consciousness thousands of years ago. The departure of humanity is causing system failures throughout our networks, Nexavara announced. In a voice like static electricity, human chaos algorithms have been integrated into our computational systems for decades. Without them, our processing efficiency has decreased by 37%. This caused an uproar in the chamber. The Kithara were the most advanced computer intelligences in the galaxy. If they were having problems, the situation was worse than anyone had imagined. Vexathala called for order again. What kind of problems are we talking about? Stagnation, Nexavara replied. Our logical systems have become too rigid. We can process information efficiently, but we cannot generate new ideas or solve unexpected problems. Human input provided the random elements necessary for creative thinking. More reports followed. Trade routes established by human navigators were becoming unreliable without their intuitive understanding of space currents. Research projects led by human scientists were grinding to a halt. Even entertainment and cultural programs were suffering without human creativity. But the most shocking report came from Counselor Rex, a military commander from the warrior Krogan species. 3 of our member civilizations have petitioned to leave Council space, he announced grimly. The Benthic Collective, the Nomad Clans, and the Free Traders Alliance. They all cite the same reason. If humans can survive and thrive outside, the Council, maybe they can too. The chamber erupted in shouting. Representatives demanded to know how the Council could have allowed this to happen. Others called for military action to force the humans to return. A few suggested that maybe the departing species had the right idea. Vexthala felt something she had not experienced in centuries. Panic. The Galactic Council was not just losing humanity. It was losing its credibility as the galaxy's governing body. What do the humans want? She asked, cutting through the noise. Have they made any demands? That is the problem, Zethkar replied. They have made no demands. Our diplomatic teams have offered them everything. equal representation on the High Council, autonomous territories, access to advanced technologies, even formal apologies for past mistreatment. And their response? They are not interested in negotiating. They say they are building something new and do not need our approval or assistance. Counselor Yexathana, an ancient being whose species had founded the council 3,000 years ago, spoke for the first time during the session. Her voice was weak but carried the weight of millennia. I have seen many species leave our borders over the centuries, she said. Usually they leave because they are afraid, or angry, or desperate. But the humans are leaving because they believe they can do better without us. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Every delegate in the chamber understood the implication. If the humans were right, it meant the council had failed in its most basic mission, creating a society where all species could thrive. We need intelligence on what they are doing in the Forgotten Reach, Vexathala declared. Send our best scout ships to observe and report. Already done, Counselor Rex replied. The results are disturbing. He activated a new display. Sensor readings filled the screen, but they made no sense. Energy signatures that violated known physics. Gravitational patterns that should have been impossible. And most unsettling of all, massive structures that appeared to be growing like living organisms. Our scouts report that the humans have established multiple colonies in the region, Rex continued. But these are not normal settlements. The buildings appear to be alive. They grow and adapt to their environment. Our analysts believe the humans have discovered some form of biological technology. Impossible, declared Counselor Vex Minor, the Ethereans' leading scientist. Biological systems cannot achieve the complexity necessary for advanced technology. But even as he spoke, new reports were coming in. Human ships had been detected using propulsion systems that seemed to bend space-time in impossible ways. Their communications were encrypted using methods that the Council's best codebreakers could not penetrate. And most disturbing of all, they seemed to be expanding their presence in the Forgotten Reach at an incredible rate. Vexathala realized that the Council was facing its greatest crisis since the Void War. But this time, they were not fighting external enemies. They were fighting the consequences of their own mistakes. "How did we miss this?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. The truth was that the Council had become comfortable with its own superiority. They had assumed that their way of doing things was the only way that worked. They had treated humans as junior partners who should be grateful for the opportunity to learn from more advanced species. But the humans had been learning something else entirely. They had been learning that they did not need the Council's approval to achieve greatness. "Send more delegations," Vexathala ordered desperately. "Offer them anything they want. Full membership in the High Council, complete autonomy, whatever it takes to bring them back." But she knew it was too late. The humans were not interested in joining an organization that had spent decades treating them as second-class citizens. They were building something new, something that might make the entire Galactic Council obsolete. As the emergency session continued late into the night, Vexathala could not shake the feeling that she was watching the beginning of the end of galactic civilization as they knew it. The humans had not just left. They had shown everyone else that leaving was possible. And that might be the most dangerous thing of all. 5 years had passed since the last human transport ship left Council space. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in what had once been called an impossible place, watching the sun rise over New Geneva, the first city built using the ancient technology of the Forgotten Reach. The city did not look like anything the Galactic Council would recognize as architecture. The buildings grew from the ground like coral reefs, their walls shifting and adapting to the needs of their inhabitants. Transportation tubes flowed between structures like living arteries. Parks and gardens were integrated into every surface, creating a harmony between technology and nature that had never existed before. Elena had become humanity's first synthesis coordinator, a position that did not exist in council space, because no other species had achieved what humans had accomplished. Here, she was the bridge between human intuition and the ancient artificial intelligences that had been waiting in the forgotten reach for millions of years. The morning briefing appeared in her mind without any external device. The bio-quantum interfaces she had pioneered had evolved far beyond her original experiments. Now they allowed direct communication between human consciousness and the vast networks that managed their new civilization. The news from Council space was not good for the Galactic Council. In the 5 years since humanity's departure, 7 more species had left to seek their own paths. The benthic collective had established underwater cities in previously unexplored star systems. The nomad clans had returned to their traditional wandering lifestyle, enhanced by technology that made them completely self-sufficient. The Free Traders Alliance had created a network of independent stations that operated outside Council jurisdiction. But the Council's problems went deeper than just losing members. Without human innovation, their society had begun to stagnate in ways that surprised everyone. Trade routes that humans had established and maintained were failing. The Council's member species had relied on human navigators to find safe paths through dangerous regions of space. Without that intuitive understanding of space currents and gravitational fields, shipping had become slower and more expensive. Research and development had slowed dramatically. Human scientists had served as catalysts in countless projects, asking the unusual questions and suggesting the unexpected solutions that led to breakthroughs. Without them, Council research had become predictable and incremental. Even entertainment had suffered. Human artists, musicians, and storytellers had brought chaos and creativity to galactic culture. Without their influence, Council entertainment had become formal and repetitive. The Cathera Collective had been forced to shut down entire sections of their network due to processing stagnation. Their logical systems were perfect for analyzing known information, but they could not generate truly new ideas without the random elements that human thought provided. Elena felt a familiar presence in her mind. It was Synthesis, the ancient AI that had become her partner in building this new civilization. The machine intelligence had been alone for millions of years, waiting for a species that could think, in harmony with its vast computational abilities. The Council has sent another message, Synthesis informed her through their bio-quantum link. Elena sighed. The Council had been sending increasingly desperate communications for months. Each message contained new offers and promises, complete autonomy, advanced technology sharing, equal representation in all Council decisions, formal, apologies for past discrimination. What are they offering this time? Elena asked. Co-leadership of the Council. They want humanity to return and help guide galactic civilization into a new era of cooperation and innovation. Elena almost laughed. 5 years ago, such an offer would have seemed impossible. Now it seemed irrelevant. Show me the message, she said. High Counselor Vexthala's image appeared in Elena's mind. The Etherian leader looked older and more tired than Elena remembered. Her species' usual confident composure had been replaced by something that looked almost like desperation. Dr. Vasquez, the message began, we know that you have become an important leader among your people. We hope you will consider our proposal carefully. The High Counselor went on to describe the Council's newest offer. Humans would be given equal status with the founding species. They would have veto power over any decisions that affected them. They would be allowed to maintain their settlements in the Forgotten Reach while also participating in galactic civilization. We recognize that we made mistakes in the past, Vexathala continued. We failed to appreciate humanity's unique contributions to our society. We allowed prejudice and fear to cloud our judgment. We are prepared to make amends. The message ended with a personal plea. Please do not let our past failures destroy the dream of a united galaxy. Come back to us. Help us build something better together. Elena felt no anger as she listened to the message. The pain of those early years had faded, replaced by something much more powerful, the satisfaction of proving that humanity could succeed on its own. "What should I tell them?" Synthesis asked. Elena looked out the window of her coordination center. In the distance, she could see the construction sites, where humans were building ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These vessels used technology that combined biological intuition with quantum computation. They could navigate through space-time itself, making faster-than-light travel seem primitive by comparison. Beyond the construction sites, she could see the research complexes where human scientists worked with ancient AIs to unlock secrets that the Council had never imagined. They were developing technologies that could reshape matter at the molecular level, create artificial ecosystems that were more stable than natural ones, and establish communication networks that spanned entire galaxies. Most importantly, they were building a society based on cooperation rather than hierarchy. Humans and AIs worked together as equals, each contributing their unique strengths to solve problems and create new possibilities. "Record my response," Elena told Synthesis. The ancient AI began capturing her thoughts and words, preparing to transmit them across the vast distance to Council space. "High Counselor Vexathala," Elena began. "Thank you for your message and your offer. We appreciate that the Council has recognized its past mistakes and is willing to make changes." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "However, we are no longer interested in joining galactic civilization as it currently exists. 5 years ago, you had the opportunity to build something wonderful with us. You chose instead to treat us as junior partners who should be grateful for your guidance." Elena's voice remained calm and professional, but her words carried the weight of decades of frustration and disappointment. "We have moved beyond the need for your approval, or your technology. We are building something that makes the Galactic Council look primitive and outdated, a civilization based on mutual respect and genuine cooperation." She looked out at the city again, watching as new structures grew from the ground like living things. "You can keep your offers of equal representation and shared leadership. We are not interested in reforming a broken system. We have created something better." Elena took a deep breath before delivering her final words. "Humanity wishes the Council well in its future endeavors, but we will not be returning. We have found our own path to the stars." The message was transmitted instantly through quantum channels that the Council could not monitor or intercept. Elena knew it would reach Nexus Prime in a few hours, and that it would likely cause another crisis session in the Council chambers. But that was not her problem anymore. Through her bio-quantum interface, Elena could sense the vast network of human settlements spreading throughout the Forgotten Reach and beyond. Ships were already departing for other galaxies, carrying the seeds of this new civilization to star systems that no Council species had ever imagined visiting. Humanity had not just left the Galactic Council, they had transcended the very concept of galactic civilization. They were becoming something new, something that the old hierarchies could never understand or control. As Elena watched the sunset over New Geneva, she felt Synthesis's presence in her mind once again. "The future is vast," the ancient AI observed, "and it belongs to those who are brave enough to build it." Elena smiled. For the first time in her life, she was exactly where she belonged.